Hello, career competitor. This is Steve Mellor, as always, here to share with you some powerful conversation and some significant insights into what it means to optimize your career in pursuit of your optimal self. I am excited to be introducing our guest here shortly. But as always, let me draw your attention to careercompetitor.com, where you'll see right at the top of that homepage is a place where you can enter your email and become a part of my monthly subscription, my mid-monthly message, where I am just simply giving you that little nudge in the middle of the month to remember that whatever it was you set out to achieve with all that energy at the outset of the month and whatever those lofty goals may be at the end of the month, that you're not going to lose sight of that journey in between. Become a part of my community today. Head to careercompetitor.com, enter your email, and look forward to my next mid-monthly message. Now, let's get right into the show. Hello there and welcome in to this episode of Career Competitor, where I'm so excited to be welcoming in Shara Ruffin to the podcast. Shara has an incredible story and her introduction will certainly support that here in just a moment. But here's three things to be listening out for across many other insights courtesy of Shara within our episode today. Firstly, we talk about the importance of how life's adversities can shape and strengthen the person we show up as in our careers. Secondly, we touch on the power of connection and the role that community can play within it. And finally, we talk about why the simple act of doing is a key part of prioritizing what's best for us. So these three things, many, many more themes and topics throughout our conversation with Shara Ruffin on this episode of Career Competitor, and I hope you all enjoy. Okay, our career competitor today is an independently licensed clinical social worker and former psychotherapist whose company combines wellness, clinical supervision, and professional development coaching to support social workers through licensure examinations. Since founding her company, Journey to Licensure, our guest has become a major voice within her industry, and more so regionally, having become a top 15 LinkedIn expert in her home city of Philadelphia in 2023. In addition to her full-time work, our guest keeps busy with a 5-time Amazon bestseller of a social work journal called 90 Days of Prayer, which is a book from the heart of a social worker to social workers, encouraging them to keep doing what they do while taking care of themselves. Fresh off the back of her Silver Stevie Award for Thought Leader of the Year in Consumer Services at the prestigious 2024 American Business Awards, I am truly excited and honored to be welcoming into Career Competitor Shara Ruffin. Shara, how are we doing today?
Good. Thank you so much for having me on. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. And as you can tell from the intro, you're a busy lady. You've got a lot of stuff going on, and that's what makes you a perfect guest for this podcast, quite frankly. So, with all this being said through the intro, where I want to start here, Shara, is whenever I have someone coming on who's just recently had an award like that at the Silver Stevie Award, I'm always curious when you think about that. I think it's been about a month or so since it happened now. What does that award say for the journey that you've been on to have gotten to that point where you're getting that kind of acknowledgement for your work? What does it say about the journey, do you think, at this point in your life?
I'm still processing it. It's been a month, but the actual award ceremony is in Manhattan Tuesday, this coming Tuesday. So I feel like there's a lot of things that are happening besides the award ceremony. I'm just still trying to process it. But when I think about my journey, it was a messy one. I think the award for me signifies where I'm at now, from where I've been, not only with my business. I'm only 3.5 years in, but just my journey as a social worker, as a mom, as a entrepreneur, but also someone who never thought they were going into entrepreneurship at all. I thought I would be working in a hospital most of my life, which is what I had been doing. So to be getting recognized for birthing something really unique, which was a pain point for me, is amazing. But I'm still working on what that really signifies for me. I didn't know that when I got it, I beat 300 other entrepreneurs around the world for that award. I had no idea until I was told. So that's amazing. I'm still processing though.
Yeah, yeah. No, understandably so. It's such a prestigious award, and I actually love the way you actually capture it in the sense of it's more of a representation of where you are as opposed to, where you've come from. And I'd love to just now dive into that journey of how you've gotten to where you are. And something about our show that's really shifted in the last 2.5 years is when I decided to step into entrepreneurship. So first 3.5 years of the show, I'm just working at a state institution here in Louisiana. And much like yourself, a couple of years ago, I made this decision to jump into entrepreneurship. So tell me a little bit about what it was the universe was maybe telling you at that time in your life that said, Shara, you know what? I know you've been doing it this way for a heck of a long time, but now's the time to go commit to this world of entrepreneurship.
It was actually a life circumstance that made me pivot. Mm-hmm. So briefly what happened was I couldn't pass my board exam. This is a board exam for social work that we usually need to pass in order to gain sustainability opportunities in our career. It's like the last thing we have to grab. It takes about 2 years to get. It took me a decade because of life kicking in. And when I failed my exam, it was, how can I forget? November 2019. I missed it by 2 points. And I was pretty devastated because right after that, I lost my job and had 3 kids at home with my partner, who's now my fiance now. But it was a pretty hard, depressing time. And I spent a lot of time just really playing video games. I didn't do anything. Playing video games with my kids and taking care of them and just taking time to go through the motions of that type of grief with how much it qualifies to even sit for that type of exam. And go through the motions with just my mental health. I became not only very depressed, but I was having panic attacks, excessive migraines, a lot of psychosomatic symptoms every day. I couldn't afford insurance. So I ended up writing in an old notebook of my son. He was in kindergarten at the time. He's now going into 5th grade. He'll be 10. So thinking about this, it seems like yesterday. But it was just a time where I knew something needed to change. And I just focused on trying to pass my exam. And when I did the following year, it blew up on LinkedIn to over 100,000 views. And I was trying to figure out what were people responding to. It was the story of me telling, not me just passing the exam, but people have been watching me on video day in and day out for a whole year, every single day, about what I was going through in terms of my own mental health. And people had no idea I was broke and I was on assistance and state assistance for food and medical and things like that. No one had any idea because all they saw were all these shiny letters and accolades and all the stuff I had professionally. And I was really like at my wit's end. And then I ended up getting help, getting a psychiatrist, getting some assistance with medical, and getting diagnosed with ADHD. I had generalized anxiety disorder and a learning disorder, but never the ADHD wasn't diagnosed. And when it was, a lot of things became more clear in terms of some of the behavioral cognitive barriers that I had when it came to testing made sense, even though I was a higher achiever in college and in my grad program. So after that, for about 6 months, I got on Clubhouse. A good LinkedIn mentor told me, he's like, Clubhouse is hot, get on there. I got on, I was like, I don't know what this app is. And everyone was losing sleep over this thing back then. I was on there and I found this social work group and I was telling them my story, my testimony. And they said, hey, start doing a study group. I want you guys to do a group. So I started doing a group. That group turned into a 6-figure business in 7 months. It was a funnel space. Because I started, and I did it free for the first 6 months. I just did free groups trying to help people pass their exams. They were passing. I wasn't doing anything else, just helping people on pass their board exams. The bills and stuff were being paid. Fortunately, my fiance at the time, he became my fiance shortly after I passed my exam. He allowed me to go through the motions of trying to figure out what was the next steps. Was I going to be in private practice as a therapist, or was I going to do something else? It just so happened the thing that I was doing, I was really enjoying helping people get from point A to point B, which were a lot of my struggles. And I ended up, it's been 3.5 years later, and here I am, still doing it.
Oh, I love it. I love it. It's something that always fascinates me when I see someone's name and I see the letters next to it, and I always think, okay, there's all these letters that represent certifications and things like that.
Yes.
Shara, you got a lot of letters. You got a lot of letters next to your name.
I know.
But here's the thing: why wouldn't you, with a story like that? Why wouldn't you just shout it from the rooftop? Why wouldn't you just be letting the world know? Like, these, not only are these letters worthy of being next to my name, but my gosh, they were earned. They were all earned, and like that is what this. That's what I love about getting these kind of stories from behind the scenes, because if I was just looking at you in terms of a resume or a profile on LinkedIn, I wouldn't know what came with those letters. And that for me is the great stuff. That for me is the inspiring stuff that anyone listening to this and anybody that obviously has followed your story is going to learn so much of the importance of saying, well, listen, yes, life is going to do its thing at sometimes and it's going to make adversity, create adversity in ways that we weren't necessarily planning for. But what I'm hearing from you, though, at the same time, is that all that adversity, in some way, shape, or form, it provided some form of a catalyst for you to even keep going when it could have so easily been the reason for you just to hop off and not keep going. You know, so am I hearing that part right?
Exactly. Yeah, I think I love the part where you said catalyst, because I feel like my life was pretty much that at that time, and the things leading up to that point where I became an entrepreneur and learning how to be a businesswoman. Quite a ride, learning how to do that, to switch from having a social work heart to being in business and navigating that space. But it's been a fun ride. I've enjoyed it the whole time. It has had its stress of, because now I'm having the problem of there's not enough of me. What's next? How do I scale this thing? But everyone I talk to, it's saying that's a good problem to have. Right. So, so that's, it's been just a journey. I'm someone that always loves to talk about the nitty gritty hard stuff, because it's very easy to Google my name and see all the accolades and magazine covers and all that stuff. But what people don't know is some of the anxieties, some of the pitfalls I've had leading up to that point. There were a lot of losses along the way of building my business for it to be where it is in a very short time, which I did not expect at all. Because my whole point wasn't making money at all. It was just me simply trying to help someone not go through what I did. That is it, which is why I did it for free for 6 months. I wasn't trying to turn it into anything. It just so happened that me sharing, I think, my story over time, I felt like my life experiences pivoted me in that direction. But
you've allowed it to, as well, is what I'm hearing as well. You didn't fight it. You didn't resist it. You know, I think that is something that sometimes comes through in these stories that we have of folks that come on the show. Is it's not so much that the universe is maybe doing its thing or the opportunities are coming your way, but you're actually just kind of giving yourself over to it as well. You're not allowing it to, so you're not over questioning it or over analyzing it. Like that perfect example of the 6 months on Clubhouse, where it's like, I just love having this community. I don't know how this all happened and why it's happening, the way it's happening and the way it's accelerating. It's so exciting. But instead of me overanalyzing it, I'm just going to kind of let it be in its most organic form and see what eventually comes from it. And I think sometimes we can almost get in our own way when we try to give things definitions that they don't need or give things reasons that they don't need. I'm just hearing this beautiful organic component to your story that you just kind of gave yourself over. And I'd have to assume as well, just to kind of touch on your faith here, obviously having written a book around prayer, like how much of that does derive from just that foundation of faith that you have?
It very much did. It played a crucial part. The two books that I wrote, they were written 3 weeks, 3 weeks apart from each other. In 3 weeks, they were both about 100 pages each. Maybe that's part of my ADHD hyperfocus. Like when I dig into a project, like that's it. Nothing else matters until it's done. But they were fast to write because that journal had filtered to about 108 pages of information. I couldn't afford a therapist at the time. Mind you, I was a former therapist, and so I would think about what I was watering my mind with. And I loved affirmations, so I would write down prayer requests and affirmations every day with my letters of my license behind my name, whether I believed it or not. I knew that manifestation was a big part of that process for me. But when I was done with that part of my journey, I said, what can I do with this? How can I give these lessons to someone else as part of their blueprint? And that's what I did. One became a 5-time Amazon bestseller, The 90 Days of Prayer Within 40 Hours, which I didn't expect. But it was because of the community that I was connected to that I had already built, which was interesting to learn that, building trust and credibility, and the way I was showing up on different platforms at the time through video was a fast way of kind of getting that credibility and trust. Hence, and not just with that target audience, but with a lot of different people, because my story, the more I would go into, there's so many different pieces that people can relate to, whether that's being a military wife. I'm a former military spouse. So during those 10 years, I was engaged and married to my ex-husband, who was in the military for 26 years in the Army. Losing a child. I lost my daughter, gave birth to a stillborn when he was in Afghanistan. That was his first tour. That was my first baby. After that, shortly, we had Jaden. Jaden was not supposed to live beyond his 1-year mark. He's now almost 10. Wow. But for the first 6 years of his life, while working, going through a military divorce, I had to take care of him and rebuild my career after that. Moved back from the DMV area to Philadelphia, back home, which I hadn't lived back home since I was 18. So during those 10 years, that 10-year span, I say 10 years because after grad school in 2010 at Howard, after I graduated, it was like a 10-year span of just going through the motions of trying to figure out what I want to do in my career, trying to build, I wanted to be a therapist, getting experience while having a baby on my hip, while working constant hours. I missed his first words, his first time he walked, because I was working weekends. And now to be in a space where I have that financial freedom, but I also have the freedom to spend so much more time with him. He's growing up very fast. So, especially with boys, I'm learning that detachment happens faster than with girls. Cause now he's just like, Mom, I'm on the phone with my friends. I'm playing Roblox. He'll put his iPhone on mute so they can't hear me and say, he'll motion me out. And I was like, oh, there it goes. My brothers warned me. There it goes. It's coming. They warned me at a time. Like, that's it. I'm letting you know it's coming. But just thinking about reflecting what those moments were, because it was a hard 10 years before getting to this space of even being in an entrepreneur path and being as successful as I've been. But I let people know that 3.5 years of the success that I've had and I'm still having was 20 years in making. It did not happen overnight. There were many life experiences, circumstances that have happened over time that have shaped my journey as I went along. And I always share that as a social worker and a therapist. And just, when we look at people and think they have everything all together, but a lot of times when I think about those people that are so fascinating or charismatic, or they have so many different messages, I'll take, Oprah, magnet, for instance, media magnet. And a lot of people don't know that piece of her story where she had lost her son. She had gave birth to her son till much later, or pieces of her story that allow her that positions her in a way to be a thought leader in her industry beyond what she is called to do. So when I'm not saying I'm comparing myself with Oprah or anything, but I'm thinking about those strong thought leaders, Tony Robbins, those people that have such a strong presence, but that strong presence was often born out of pain, often born out of perseverance of their own experiences. Tony Robbins, I didn't know he had an abusive mother until much later I found that out. So when I think about those people who have tremendous respect for in their industry and beyond, a lot of times I'm finding a lot of different commonalities when it comes to what makes them who they are, and why do people are so kind of just magnet to them. So I know that was kind of like random, but those are some of the things I'm thinking about when I reflect upon my own journey, because a lot of people ask me that question of like, how do you sustain? When I lost my brother, my baby brother, he was 18. He died 2 years ago, 6 blocks from my home. I was in the midst of my second year business going very well, and I get a call from my mother saying, your brother's shot. He's at Penn Presbyterian Hospital. And I know that Penn Presbyterian Hospital is a trauma center. Most people that go to trauma center do not live. So I ran there, stopped everything I was doing. I was supposed to go into LinkedIn Live, and we're waiting, and my mother comes out screaming, and my brother just shakes his head. It was like, he's gone. I'll never forget that day, because that was like at the height. And I did talk about it on LinkedIn, other social media platform. That was like the height of what I thought my business was going to be at. I had just hit like 200,000, and I was flying. And then that happened. And then I ended up going into my third year. In the beginning, I had a lot of mental health issues because I was just going. There was just things to do, and it was my way of dealing with it. And then I ended up in the hospital. Very briefly, because of chest pain, anxiety attacks, and just being everything to everyone except for myself. So I always let people know that there is a dark side to what people perceive as success. And, so I share those things very willingly, because I want people to understand that even though I'm very type A go-getter, some of it was born out of my own pathology of anxiety, out of not feeling good enough. I had a very militant father. My father was also in the military. So there was an expectation as the oldest child to do well. So being the first one to go to college, first one to graduate, go to grad school, first one to do this, that, and the other. That was pretty much what my persona was. And to the degree, I think it still holds when it comes to being the go-to in the family. So a lot of pressure, and having to learn how to manage that, and even how people perceive me as a business owner, as someone they perceive as successful, and letting them know that I bleed just like you do. Yeah. But how I deal with my stressors may be a little bit different. For me, I kind of go into go mode. My way of dealing with this to kind of work through it, but still keep going.
Yeah. And thank you for all of that. Firstly, just from a vulnerability and transparency standpoint, because it's so important that we appreciate that part of a person's story. Because as I listen to you sort of process that whole journey that you've been on, and even using a couple of those more better known names as a comparison too, is for folks to understand that there really is no such thing as an overnight success, at least from a business standpoint. You actually took the word right out of my brain when you said it shaped your journey. In my mind, I'm just hearing this word shape came to mind as you were talking. And there's this notion that as I'm pitching you talk through your journey, like, okay, what's happened here with Shara is that she's created and built this version of herself that's so tried and tested because of life, because of what life has given to her and put her through, so that now that when this community that you've been able to create for yourself has become what it's become, you are what that community needs. Like that's the beauty of this. Like this community that you've created, it's been created because these people are coming to you knowing that you can provide to them what it is they need. And I can't step aside from the nitty-gritty stuff, because that's what we love getting in the weeds on this podcast. We want to know how you got into it and really got your hands dirty to get to where you are today. So I'm just curious, when you think about this community now that has existed for a number of years, and what you've been giving to this community, what is it that this community maybe has from an appetite standpoint? What is it this community has that you feel as though when we get into the nitty-gritty of life, of business, of survival, however you want to put it, what might be that one thing that always seems to be the most consistent thing that folks are just like, listen, Shara, I need your insight. I need your help, your support with whatever it may be. Is there one thing that over the years that has kind of stood out for you?
As I'm thinking about it, the one word I kept pulling up is just connection, support. And these are my colleagues that are out in the field that are providing that for others, but oftentimes it's not for themselves. So having someone that's been in the nitty gritty, knowing where they are, and I get people from all walks of life. I've had clients that were the youngest as 22 years old, the oldest was little older than my mother, 65. And they're coming to me with their different broken issues that even go beyond the exam. I have a podcast myself that's over 196 episodes now, a year and a half that I've had it. And some of the stories, if you go back and listen to some of them, a lot of them are wrapped in the wanting to move forward in their career, but they're feeling stuck. But their version of stuck is really, to me, being planted somewhere until something or someone comes along to help them through it. And that's what I felt like I provided. That's the commonality that I see in a lot of my colleagues is feeling stuck and wanting help navigating not only their licensing, but their health, their mental health. Being a former therapist gives me another lens to look through, that not just, I hate the word tutor, I would say exam coach, because I come with my clinical personal experience of struggle. And I can relate to a lot of those pieces when I get my colleagues calling me for support. I'm also often digging into their mental health, how they function, any pending stressors they may have, because it impacts their ability to stay accountable to their licensing process. It's not an easy one. You throw life and children on top of it, or being a caretaker, or trauma, and you got a whole nother ball game. I actually have a couple clients, one client now that's dealing with a mother who has bone metastasis from cancer. And it's hard for her, and she's trying to get her license. I've had people lose loved ones along the way. So doing grief counseling, not grief counseling, but giving them grief support while helping them with their license. So the process that I take when it comes to social work exams, because that's big part of what I do, under my company, is more of a holistic approach of care, not just regarding the exam, but these people are going to be licensed to impact other people. So making sure that they're well positioned, supported, and have someone to talk to along the way, because I didn't. Yeah. So hopefully that kind of gives you a little bit of a picture.
It does, and that term connection is a funny one, especially because if my dates line up, a lot of the origin of this business and your journey came out of COVID. I think I'm right with that, and so with that being said, it's like, okay, what did we need more than anything during that time? Connection. Because it wasn't there, right? At least human to human, hand to hand, skin to skin, we didn't have it. And here you were at a time when folks needed that, but you were such an advocate for that in terms of who you were and how you represented yourself. But then at the same time, your story, your journey had proven like, hey, listen, I'm kind of tried and tested when it comes to all of these things that are going to be hitting you through life. And instead of you coming into this space and anticipating any kind of assessment or judgment or whatever it is, you're actually going to be given acceptance. You're going to be given this like complete comfort of saying, hey, listen, I see you, I understand you, I get you. And let's have a conversation about that. And just by that ability to feel accepted, I have to assume that people, not only did they come for connection, but they felt as though they could connect. They could bring their truest self into this community and say, hey, listen, I came here for connection, but I'm actually ready to initiate. I'm ready to be that person who's trying to connect with you as well.
I would say that you pretty much summed it up right there. That connection in the work that I do is very important. A lot of people have been asking, what is it that you're doing with your colleagues? It's not just passing an exam, is it? I said, no, it's a lot of it. I'm on call for them. So they can call me, contact me anytime. I'm really there to be a emotional support to them. And just their partner in crime as they're going through the process. And that support, has been vital to a lot of success that I've had. Especially when it comes to coaching my colleagues to be out there in the field.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I like in these, sometimes when we have these conversations on this show, people hear the name of the show, Career Competitor, and then we have a conversation like this. And we've not talked really a whole lot about winning or beating anybody or anything like that. And it's what I've loved about the evolution of the show is that this term competitor has just evolved so wonderfully over the 6 years. And I now get to have a show like this with you and help anybody listen to this, sort of explain to them, like, if we're talking about winning and getting ahead, so to speak, having that competitive advantage, the significant takeaway so far is that, hey, when life is happening to you, what can you really learn from it, and how can you use that to then position you to go and get what it is you want, as opposed to allowing life to beat you, which is so, I don't want to use that word easy, because sometimes it almost disregards what somebody's going through. But what I'm saying is that this is a place where you should be getting inspired right now by Shara's story, to know that whatever's going on in life, understand that it's happening to you, understand that it's shaping you, and it's actually positioning you to go and get what it is you want, because you're now a stronger version of yourself. You're now a tougher version of yourself. You're now a more capable version of yourself. And I hope that comes through. And I want to now ask you, when I use a term like competitor, Shara, I'm just curious, like, when I say that word to you, what comes to mind? Does that term resonate with you? Do you see yourself in that term? Like, talk to me a little bit about that.
I definitely don't see myself as a competitor. At least in my niche, I'm the only one that does what I do the way I do it. But what I found over the years, other people seem to think so.
Interesting.
I never did until I found interesting points in my career where now I've had to learn about trademarking and copyright and licensing. That's kind of where I'm at in my journey now, because I've had a couple of instances of people trying to copy and all types of shenanigans. Sure. So I never looked at myself more as a competitor in the marketplace. But some of the people that may do similar work seem to think so. That's the best way I can put it.
Sure. But from a personal side, I'm curious, like, when you think about your life to this point, how much is, even just the way I was kind of capturing that notion of someone shaping themselves as, the best version of themselves, aspiring to be the best version of themselves. How much do you maybe use that part of the definition or resonate with that part of it?
I do resonate with that part of it, but I always say I'm a work in progress. I'm never done until my heart starts beating. So I don't feel that I'm there yet. It's interesting because for some people that I've talked to, and they're like, in terms of my industry and where I am, they're like, man, you're at the it part. That's where I'm trying to be. And I was like, I don't feel like I'm there. And then they often look at me like I'm crazy, because they're like, what are you talking about? And I'm like, I don't know. I never feel like I'm at the pinnacle of whatever success may be in someone's mind, because the way I look at it is there's always going to be something else. There's always going to be more to do. There's always going to be another challenge. Period.
Yeah, no doubt. And what I've always enjoyed about the show is I try to emphasize that all the time, is that this is our way of emphasizing that we are all a work in progress. Like the optimal self is a term that I use in my business, but in this show a lot too. And the beauty of that word optimal is it doesn't have a ceiling. It doesn't have a finish line. It's just, we're just going, we're trying to figure it out. And as we go and we go a little further, we learn, hey, we've still got this far to go. And then we go that far, we go, oh shoot, there's still more to go. And we keep getting that confirmation, that affirmation of like, hey, this journey, it doesn't necessarily have a ceiling or a finish line if we don't want it to. We can keep on going and keep learning and keep figuring some stuff out. But one thing I want to touch on before we start to wrap up here is when I look at what it was that you've focused on with the book of 90 Days of Prayer, the focus at the heart of it is how someone can maybe take care of themselves while they go about committing to this thing that it's a commitment, it's an investment, it's demanding a lot of them. A lot of the work I do with my clients is emphasizing, hey, we want to aspire to be our optimal self, but we don't want to pursue optimal performance at the expense of our optimal self. So even in just this book and the way in which you go about your work today, what might be one or two ways that folks listening to this can consider, hey, if I'm going after this lofty goal, whatever field, whatever industry it is, I'm trying to aspire to do it, how do I go about that while also considering and taking time to protect the best version of myself too?
I have to be honest, that was always a struggle for me. Sure. Even in recent, where I am now, it's a constant place, and I'm always trying to keep myself in check when it comes to mental health, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. But the first thing I'm thinking about as you were talking is you have to put it in your mindset that you are already enough. That what you're doing in terms of your goal is you're just navigating territory in small doses. That it doesn't need to be all done in one day. I've been overwhelmed at times with having this large goal, which is, I think, goes back for me, which is why when people think of, oh, you're at the pit of success, I never think about that because I have to think about everything I have to do. I'll freeze. Mm-hmm. If I just focus on doing, it keeps me out of here, out of my head. Because we both know that the mind can be your best friend or your worst enemy, depending on what you water it with. What are you feeding it? So as you're trying to navigate that goal, just realize that don't focus on the time of what it's going to take to get there. Focus on the process of doing.
Wow. You're already enough. Focus on the process of simply doing. I mean, it's an important message, but it's a message that we can stand to hear daily. It really is, because any day can just pull us from that very mindset, that very outlook. If you're someone that takes notes the way I do when my guests join me, write that down. If there's anything you write down from the 35 minutes so far, write down that you are already enough and to simply focus on showing up and doing each and every day. Shara, honestly, I could talk to you for another 35 minutes quite easily. There's probably 1,000 more questions that I have on your story, but the one thing I love doing with our audience is giving them some absolute dimes, some nuggets that they can take away and just enjoy and appreciate and immediately incorporate within their day-to-day. And there's no doubt that you've already done that in abundance. So I appreciate the generosity of insight. And before I let you go, please, where can we find you? I know you're so active on so many different platforms. So please let us know, where's the best place that anybody who wants to learn a lot more about Shara can go?
I would say the best place would be any platform that you actually live on. My website is being reconstructed right now for trademarking purposes, so to make sure it's well positioned. But yeah, and I always tell people that they're like, "Where can I find you?" I was like, if you just Google my name, you'll find it there. I'm actually, crossing my fingers, I'm in the final rounds of Wikipedia confirmation, so. I'm keeping my fingers crossed for that because they want blood, sweat, and tears before they confirm you as notable. So I'm in the last final round of that. But yeah, that'll be coming soon. But other than that, Twitter, YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, wherever you live, you'll find me there.
Find you there. I love
every
it.
Major social media platform, YouTube. I also have a podcast as well. That's on every major podcast platform. So
yeah, what's the name of the podcast so people check it out?
Journey to Licensure.
Awesome. Well, Shara, this has been such a pleasure. It was well worth the wait. I'm excited we were able to do this, and just best of luck with your continued mission and the work that you're doing. It's having an impact to so many, and just encourage you to keep going and appreciate the time.
Thank you.
And my thanks again to Shara for joining us on the show today. Such an interesting story that she has throughout her life, and how the patience within it has really allowed for it to become what it's become today. And I really want to emphasize that part of our conversation is your willingness just to stay in the difficult, to stay in the journey, to remain patient enough that down the road, that turn, that uptake that it is you're wishing for today, you're hoping for today, that it's going to come. But the only way it's going to come is by staying in the work, by staying on the journey that you're currently on. And sadly, with that, sometimes it means allowing ourselves to accept that there's going to be trials, there's going to be periods of difficulty that make it very difficult to see that at some point down the road, things are going to get good, things are going to get great, things are going to get to where it is we're trying to get to. So I hope you took that from Shara's story, because I certainly did. While there's so many other insights there that I'm sure you could have taken, I hope that is one that you're able to walk away with courtesy of Shara today. But my thanks again to her. My thanks again, even more so to you for listening. There's so many great things happening within this show, this globally ranked top 50 in the world self-improvement podcast. That's right. That's the status of this show now. Thanks to you. We only get there because of listeners. Thank you for listening. Thank you for taking the time to challenge yourself, to push your optimal self, to become who it is you're capable of becoming, and keep coming back for more, because that journey, folks, and this is the fun stuff, that journey isn't ending anytime soon. We get to keep investing in ourselves and keep finding ways to grow along this journey that we call life. So as you leave here today, don't forget, if you haven't yet, subscribe to the show. Go ahead and share this episode with someone as well who you think could benefit from this fantastic insight courtesy of Shara. And as always, best of luck with anything and everything you've got going on within your world. I look forward to doing this all again with you very soon. Bye for now.